The world has taught you that power shouts, that it's loud, aggressive, and demands to be seen. That is a lie designed to keep you predictable, reactive, and easy to control. True power doesn't make a sound. It operates in the chilling stillness between words, in the calm gaze that unnerves an opponent, in the strategic absence that breeds obsession. For the next few minutes, we are not just discussing self-improvement. We are descending into the architecture of psychological dominance. You will learn the cold, hard principles of Machiavelli, not as history, but as a practical manual. You will understand how to weaponize perception, leverage emotion, and build an inner fortress of the mind so absolute that you become, in every sense of the word, untouchable. If you are ready to stop being a piece in someone else's game and become the hand that moves the board, then silence your phone and listen closely. Part 1: The Architecture of Composure. So let's begin with the first foundational principle. There's a silent frequency that governs the world, a signal that hums beneath the noise of chaos and desperation. Most people can't hear it. They're too busy shouting, reacting, and broadcasting their every fleeting emotion. But you're here to learn to tune in. And the first thing you must understand is this: true power doesn't roar. It resides in the unshakable stillness of your own mind. The ultimate game of influence isn't won by the loudest voice in the room, but by the calmest nervous system. This isn't just philosophy, it's neuroscience. Your brain is a battleground between two primal forces: the amygdala, your ancient, reactive lizard brain that screams danger, fear, and rage, and the prefrontal cortex, the evolved seat of logic, strategy, and self-control. Every moment of your life, these two are at war. The average person is a slave to their amygdala. A slight insult, a minor inconvenience, a moment of uncertainty, and they are instantly hijacked. Their heart rate spikes, their vision narrows, and they hand over the keys to their mind to anyone or anything that can provoke them. When you react, you become a puppet, and the world is full of puppeteers. Emotional control is the highest form of dominance because it is neurologically sovereign. It cannot be hacked, manipulated, or controlled from the outside. When you achieve it, something profound happens. In the midst of chaos, when others are panicking, your heartbeat remains steady. Your thoughts remain clear. You become a singularity, a point of absolute calm in a swirling storm. And people, on a deep, instinctual level, begin to fear this, not because they fear what you might do, but because they fear what they cannot read in you. You become a black box, an unsolvable equation, unpredictable, untouchable, unreadable. This is the habitat of real power, a power that thrives not in action, but in deliberate, calculated restraint. Machiavelli, in his timeless, brutal wisdom, wrote, "Men should be either caressed or crushed." But the deeper lesson isn't about violence or kindness. It's about the ability to deploy either with absolute emotional detachment. The man who can praise his ally one moment and eliminate his rival the next, without his pulse ever quickening, is the man who cannot be stopped. Why? Because his actions are not clouded by ego, anger, or affection. They are pure, unadulterated strategy. Remember this: chaos feeds on your reaction. Your outrage is its fuel. Your fear is its oxygen. But your silence starves it to death. When you cease the desperate need to defend your feelings, you seize control of your image. And when you master your image, you begin to dictate the terms of reality itself. So, practice this. Breathe slowly. Speak less than necessary. Observe everything. Every word you withhold isn't a word lost. It's a weapon stored for later. Every calm, unwavering gaze is a silent warning that you are not playing the same game as everyone else. Let this burn into your mind as a core principle. I move in silence, but my stillness makes the world react. This leads us to the next layer of mastery, the psychology of detachment. This is a concept most people fundamentally misunderstand. Detachment is not apathy, it is precision. It is the learned, surgical ability to sever emotional bias from decision-making, like a master surgeon separating a vital organ from diseased tissue. The cut is clean, deliberate, and final. The average man is drowning in a sea of his own feelings: anger, jealousy, insecurity, fear. These are the currents that pull him under, that choke his logic and make him utterly predictable. A predictable man is a controllable man. But you are not training to be average. You are training to become a psychological weapon, and your primary calibration is detachment. Emotional detachment grants you a superpower in a world hopelessly addicted to validation and reaction, control. While others are frantically chasing likes, approval, and attention, you remain still. While they broadcast their every thought, you become a mystery. That silence, that apparent void, doesn't create emptiness. It creates a powerful psychological gravity. The less you appear to need from the world, the more the world craves your presence, your approval, your attention. This is the genesis of influence. It doesn't begin with loud commands or aggressive posturing. It begins with a strategic and compelling absence. People are, as Machiavelli knew centuries ago, slaves to two masters: desire and fear. The practice of detachment is the process of mastering both of these forces within yourself. Once you are no longer a slave to your own desires and fears, you can begin to see and influence the desires and fears that govern others. Detachment becomes your shield. It prevents your own emotions from being turned against you. In any crisis, the one who stays calm while everyone else is breaking down becomes the anchor, the de facto leader. You can manipulate the chaos precisely because you are not a part of it. You observe it from a distance, from your inner citadel. Understand this axiom. Distance is dominance. You are not cold because you lack emotion. You are controlled because you refuse to let emotion be your master. Every time someone attempts to provoke you and fails, you win a silent, crucial victory. Your lack of response becomes the loudest, sharpest reply. It communicates that they do not have the power to affect your inner state. They begin to project power onto you because you refuse to show the weakness they expect. That perception becomes your most formidable weapon. When you are detached, you cease to be reactive and become strategic. You stop playing checkers, reacting to every immediate threat, and you start playing chess, thinking 5 moves ahead. You stop living on impulse and start architecting your reality. No one can predict the moves of a man who has conquered himself. He becomes unshakable, immovable, and impossible to outmaneuver. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you choose, with lethal precision, what is worth caring about. You decide which battles deserve your energy and which trivialities deserve nothing but your silence. Most people are slaves to every emotional spark that flickers through their nervous system. You, when detached, become the fire itself, cool, controlled, and consuming only what truly matters. Part 2. The battlefield of belief. Let's descend deeper. We've established the foundation of inner control. Now, we build the external empire, and that empire is built on one immutable law of human nature. Perception is the battlefield where power is won or lost long before a single word is spoken. The objective, verifiable truth is utterly irrelevant. What matters is belief. Humans are not creatures of logic. They are creatures of narrative, emotion, and image. They do not follow facts. They follow the perception of strength, certainty, and authority. The Machiavellian mind doesn't argue with this reality. It seizes it and bends it like steel. When you master perception, you operate on a different plane of existence. You don't need to win arguments. You simply appear right. You don't need to demand respect. You radiate an aura that makes disrespect unthinkable. By controlling what others see, you fundamentally control what they think. Every glance, every pause, every calculated silence becomes a piece of psychological theater, with you as the sole director. Power isn't found in proving your worth. It's found in implying it. You let others fill the void of your silence with their own assumptions. And when your presence commands it, they will always assume in your favor. To effectively weaponize perception, you must internalize a core principle of cognitive psychology. The human brain is addicted to certainty and viscerally fears ambiguity. This is your primary lever. Your entire persona must become an exercise in controlled contradiction. Be deliberate in your actions, but unreadable in your motives. Be confident in your posture, but never desperate for a result. Show less than you know, reveal less than you feel, offer less than they expect. This calculated mystery doesn't push people away. It creates a psychological tension, a vacuum that pulls them in. And tension is the breeding ground of influence. When people cannot categorize you, when they can't fit you into a neat little box, their minds default to a primal conclusion. They label you as powerful. Their internal monologue becomes a loop of uncertainty. What is he thinking? What is his next move? They begin to fear disappointing you, losing your favor, or misjudging your intentions. Notice the shift? You are no longer fighting for dominance. You have engineered a situation where their own imagination is fighting the battle for you. This is the art of psychological warfare, the silent, elegant manipulation of human instinct. Machiavelli issued a stark warning that echoes through the halls of power. It is not enough to be powerful. You must appear powerful. Think about the signals: a calm face in the middle of a crisis, a level, measured tone when everyone else is shouting, a slow, deliberate movement when others are rushing in panic. These are not just habits, they are broadcasts. They are powerful signals to the primitive, subconscious parts of everyone's brain that you are a person with a controlled mind. People don't question the composed, they instinctively follow them. You are creating an aura, a gravitational field of certainty that subtly commands submission. The world doesn't bow to truth. It bows to the most compelling image of it. Let this sink in. Perception is both your armor and your weapon. Never reveal your full strength. Never explain your motives fully. Power thrives in the unknown, in the potential that is sensed but never seen. Let your silence create stories about you that they can't stop telling themselves. Let your calm intimidate the loud and unravel the insecure. You do not need their validation. Your presence is the validation. The most potent men on this planet move as if they already own the outcome. They walk into a room not hoping for respect, but expecting it as a natural law. This brings us to the operational phase, the emotional leverage game. So far, we have focused on building your internal fortress, but power is not a solitary pursuit. It is a dynamic exchange. And the most dangerous man is not the one who shows no emotion, but the one who understands emotion so deeply that he can turn it into a weapon. The art of emotional leverage begins with a cold, clear recognition. People are beautifully, tragically predictable in their feelings. Every human being, from the king to the pauper, is driven by a handful of primal needs. They crave validation, they fear rejection, and they desperately seek approval. Once you see this underlying operating system, you can pull the strings without them ever feeling a tug. This is dark psychology in its purest, most refined form. It is the art of shaping the behavior of others through their own emotions, while you remain a placid, untouched observer. The Machiavellian mind never reacts, he calculates. Every word spoken is a probe, designed to elicit a specific emotional response. Every silence is crafted to create a precise amount of tension or uncertainty. When you can control how someone feels in your presence, you control how they act in your presence. That is the secret. You don't need to force or manipulate directly. You simply let their deep-seated desire to please you, to gain your approval, do all the work. A slightly raised eyebrow, a subtle, knowing smirk, a strategically delayed response to a text message. These are not accidents. These are your tools. They are scalpels in a world of sledgehammers. With them, you can create a landscape where others are constantly seeking your approval, adjusting their behavior to earn it, without ever consciously knowing why. Why? Because emotional leverage is invisible. It operates beneath the surface of conscious awareness in the realm of instinct and insecurity. You must learn to read the emotional landscape of every interaction like a grandmaster reads a chessboard. Who here is needy? Who is arrogant? Who is secretly fearful? Once you identify their emotional triggers, you can guide their behavior as you see fit. This isn't about cruelty. It's about strategy. The weak constantly leak their emotional needs, seeking sympathy and validation. The strong seek control. You must train yourself to see the emotions of others not as messy obstacles, but as strategic opportunities. When someone displays anger, you don't meet it with your own. You calmly let them talk, encouraging them until they overextend and expose their weaknesses. When someone flatters you, you don't bask in it. You recognize their need for your favor and catalog it for future use. The cardinal rule is this: never reveal your emotional state first. Whoever does so becomes transparent, predictable. Control the emotional pace of every exchange. Slow it down. When others are frantic, your calm deliberation forces them to adjust to your rhythm. They will slow their speech, lower their tone, all in a subconscious effort to regain rapport. And in doing so, they fall into your frame, into your control. Machiavelli famously taught that it is better to be feared than loved, because love is dependent on the fickle feelings of others, while fear is dependent on you. But the highest, most transcendent form of power is a delicate balance of both. It is the ability to inspire both fear and admiration, often in the same person, at the same time. You create this powerful duality through emotional leverage. When people feel both intensely drawn to you and perpetually uncertain of your complete approval, you become unforgettable. You become necessary. That is the throne very few ever get to sit on. Part 3. The Strategic Void and Primal Forces. Now, we arrive at the final test of control, the apotheosis of influence, the power of strategic absence. This is the proof that your presence carries such weight that it is felt most profoundly when you are not there. The weak, the insecure, the needy, they cling to constant visibility. They need to post, to speak, to be seen, because they equate attention with existence. Their greatest fear is being forgotten. But the truly powerful understand a fundamental law of value. Presence, like any currency, loses its value through oversupply. Every time you speak, every time you appear, you give the world another data point. You give them another chance to measure you, to categorize you, to grow comfortable with you, and ultimately, to predict you. And predictability is the death of power. What people can't predict, they respect. What they can't have, they obsess over. The Machiavellian mind knows that disappearance, when used with surgical precision, is the most potent catalyst for obsession. Absence is not retreat. It is a strategic maneuver. You do not step back to vanish. You step back to amplify your own mystery. Consider this. When you disappear at the peak of an interaction, when people are most curious, most engaged, your silence doesn't create a void. It creates a vacuum. It becomes deafening. In that space you've created, they don't forget you. They begin to reconstruct you. They replay your last words, searching for hidden meanings. They analyze your tone, your gaze, desperate for clues. Their minds, unable to tolerate the ambiguity you've created, will begin to fill the void with their own fantasies. And in their fantasies, you always grow larger than life. Your absence becomes a mirror reflecting their own insecurities, their own curiosity, their insatiable need for closure. You become the storm they anticipate after the silence, the echo in a room they can't stop hearing. This is psychological dominance at its most elegant, commanding absolute attention without ever demanding it. Machiavelli warned rulers against making themselves too available. Familiarity breeds contempt, he wrote. This isn't just a maxim for kings. It is a law of human interaction. Whether with lovers, allies, or rivals, once they get too close, once they feel they have you figured out, they stop respecting the distance that made you powerful in the first place. The wise man guards his energy, his presence, and his time like a fortress. You must learn to vanish on purpose, to make your silence speak louder than your words ever could. This isn't arrogance, it is discipline. It's a quiet declaration that your time and attention are finite, valuable resources. People only begin to truly calculate your worth when they can no longer freely access you. Every strategic withdrawal sharpens your value. Every calculated reappearance multiplies your impact. Think of your presence as notes in a piece of music. If there are no pauses, no moments of silence, there is no rhythm, no melody, only noise. If you are always visible, always available, your power becomes background noise. But if you master the art of disappearance, your presence becomes music. When you step away, you force the world to take a breath and remember you. You create distance, and in the space of that distance, desire is born. The strong do not chase recognition. They let the world's curiosity do the work for them. Every unanswered message, every delayed response, every strategic silence sends a powerful subconscious message. I am not waiting for you. I am focused on my mission. I am becoming. This brings us to the raw, primal forces that underpin all human hierarchies, the twin pillars of fear and respect. Every empire, every dynasty, every legend that has ever scarred the pages of history was built upon a masterful manipulation of these two forces. Machiavelli's most infamous declaration, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both," is not the statement of a cynic. It is the cold, hard diagnosis of a realist. Love is conditional. It is a fair-weather friend that evaporates the moment convenience disappears. Fear, however, is primal. It is an ancient instinct that anchors itself deep in the subconscious, shaping behavior long after the initial emotion has faded. Yet the true master of power understands that fear alone is a blunt instrument. It breeds resentment and invites rebellion. The ultimate art is to fuse fear with respect, creating an alloy of authority that is unbreakable. To make others respect you through their fear of your capabilities, and fear you through their respect for your discipline. That is the sweet spot, the throne of untouchable authority. Let's be clear. Fear, in this context, is not cruelty. It is not about threats or humiliation. It is the profound and unsettling recognition of dominance. The man who wields it properly never needs to raise his voice. His silence, his unwavering composure, his absolute refusal to be emotionally swayed, that is what sends a message sharper than any threat. When you remain calm under extreme pressure, people around you feel something visceral. They sense a latent danger, not from what you will do, but from what you could do. That unknown capacity, that silent potential for devastating consequence, commands more obedience than any tantrum ever could. Respect, on the other hand, is the conscious acknowledgement of that power. It cannot be demanded, it can only be earned. It is forged in the fires of consistency, mastery, and restraint. A tyrant may be feared, but only a strategist is respected. Respect is what gives your power longevity. Fear is what gives it immediacy. Together, they build a legacy. You must learn to balance them like a sword and a shield. Too much fear, and people will look for a way to destroy you. Too much respect without an underlying edge, and they will grow complacent and test your boundaries. The secret is to remain just unpredictable enough. To be gracious when you choose and ruthlessly cold when you must. This duality keeps the world on its toes. Understand this psychological mechanism. When people know with certainty that you can destroy them, but you consistently choose not to, they will begin to follow you out of a potent cocktail of admiration and self-preservation. That is psychological dominance. They submit not because they are forced to, but because they want to remain in your favor. You've transformed their fear from a punishment into a privilege. But this is where the dark psychology deepens further. Fear doesn't just control others, its primary target is you. The fear of loss, the fear of failure, the fear of being misunderstood or forgotten, these are the invisible chains that enslave men who project an image of strength. You must sever them. You must train your mind to face fear, not as a threat, but as data. Analyze it, dissect it, and then transmute it into fuel. When others freeze in uncertainty, you move. When others hesitate, you act. Power belongs to the man who acts first and regrets nothing. Part 4. The discipline of cold execution. This brings us to a concept that the modern world has been trained to fear, a word that has been twisted to mean cruelty and chaos. That word is ruthlessness. But we are going to reclaim it, because true ruthlessness is not chaos. It's not anger. It is the purest form of discipline. It is the cold, calculated, surgical ability to do what must be done without flinching, without guilt, and without delay. This is not about a desire to hurt others. It is about the absolute commitment to eliminate weakness, hesitation, and sentimentality from the critical path of your decisions. To be ruthless is to be pathologically clear. It is to strip away the fog of emotional interference and act purely in alignment with your objective. This is where most men fail. They stand at a fork in the road. Knowing the correct path is the harder one, the one that might cause friction or disapproval. Their amygdala screams, warning them of social rejection, of being disliked. So they hesitate. They compromise. They choose the softer path, and in that moment, they condemn themselves to mediocrity and regret. Machiavelli understood this with chilling clarity. He knew that mercy without control breeds disorder, and that hesitation from a man in power invites rebellion. You must learn to separate empathy from execution. Feelings have their place, in art, in love, in reflection. But they have no place in the moment of command. The world belongs to those who act while others are still debating the morality of the action. Ruthlessness is the refusal to be slowed by the white noise of public opinion or your own internal doubts. You cannot conquer yourself, let alone the world, if you are chained by the fear of being misunderstood, judged, or disliked. Weak men want to be loved by everyone, which makes them a slave to everyone. Strong men understand and accept that being feared, hated, or envied is simply the transactional cost of power. To be truly ruthless is to be comfortable walking alone, knowing that the solitude of your own conviction is infinitely safer than the fickle approval of the crowd. But make no mistake, this is not a license for destruction. Ruthlessness, without the ironclad container of discipline, is just brutality. The undisciplined brute who acts from a surge of rage is not ruthless. He is desperate, and a desperate man is easily manipulated. The true Machiavellian mind remains surgical. Every move is measured. Every decision is an act of emotionless precision. You strike only when it is strategically necessary, never from a place of impulse. Because real power isn't demonstrated through outbursts of aggression, it is revealed through an almost terrifying restraint. The man who can destroy his enemy, but chooses not to, waiting for the perfect moment, is infinitely more powerful than the one who cannot control his thirst to strike. In business, in relationships, in spiritual warfare, this principle is immutable. Ruthlessness means having the discipline to cut away what no longer serves your growth. It's the art of saying no without an apology. It's the strength to walk away from comfort, from a toxic loyalty, even from a love that is weakening your purpose. It is the willingness to burn the bridges that lead you backward. The soft-hearted will see this and call it coldness. Let them. Their judgment is the validation of your effectiveness. The world does not reward the sentimental. It rewards the decisive. Every great empire, every successful man, every strategist you have ever admired, at their core, they were all ruthless with their time, their focus, and their emotional energy. You must train yourself to make hard decisions quickly and to live with their consequences fully. Stop overanalyzing your gut instincts. If a move must be made, make it. If a person is a drain on your energy, cut them off. If an opportunity aligns with your ultimate vision, seize it without a flicker of hesitation. The weak man is paralyzed by the question, "What if I'm wrong?" The strong man is driven by the question, What happens if I do nothing? That is the fundamental difference between a life of reaction and a life of command. And here is the most critical part. This discipline must be turned inward first. The most vital target for your coldness is yourself. You must be ruthless with your own impulses. Eliminate laziness like it's a disease. Stop negotiating with your own excuses. Your mind must obey its master, you, not the other way around. Every time you choose momentary comfort over your long-term purpose, you commit an act of self-betrayal. The man who cannot be ruthless with his own weakness will never command the respect of others. You must hold yourself to an unbreakable, almost inhuman standard. Not because the world demands it, but because your own potential does. Machiavelli would remind you that every kingdom that fell was not destroyed by its external enemies, but by its leader's internal softness. When you become lenient where firmness is required, you give birth to decay. Ruthlessness, then, is an act of preservation. It is the art of maintaining order through necessary severity. It's about having the courage to make the decisions that others are too emotional, too cowardly to make. You do it not for your ego, but for the sake of efficiency and the integrity of your mission. Every second you hesitate is a second an opponent uses to move against you. Do not confuse this with heartlessness. You can still care deeply, you can still love fiercely, but your emotions must be servants to your mission, not its saboteurs. Ruthlessness is emotional discipline under fire. It's staying logical when others drown in panic. The world belongs to those who can make the most difficult decisions and still sleep peacefully at night. You must embody a state of calm aggression, the quiet, relentless drive that never announces itself but always achieves its aim. Your tone should never rise. Your hands should never shake. Your focus should never break. Let others see compassion in your eyes, but let them feel the iron in your actions. They will learn quickly that beneath your calm exterior lies something unmovable, something dangerous, something absolutely ruthless. Part 5. The Architecture of Power. We have forged the internal fortress and mastered the external dynamics of fear and perception. Now, we move to the grand design. Power in its purest, most enduring form is not force. It is not coercion. It is architecture, an invisible structure you build, brick by brick, through influence, perception, and a unique kind of psychological gravity. The Machiavellian understands this truth above all else. Domination achieved through brute force or fear alone is fragile. It collapses the moment the threat disappears. But control, born of influence, that endures long after your physical presence has faded. Influence is the art of bending reality without ever physically touching it. It is the state where people begin to act in alignment with your will because they genuinely believe it was their idea in the first place. That is mastery. That is silent, absolute command. To construct this architecture, you must first master the subtle, unspoken language of behavior. Every gesture, every pause, every look becomes a part of your design. Influence doesn't shout from the rooftops. It whispers in calibrated silences and is felt in unwavering eye contact. The true manipulator doesn't need to demand obedience. He crafts an atmosphere where obedience feels like the most natural, logical course of action. People follow not because they are forced to, but because they desperately want to remain in your favor. They internalize your dominance, unconsciously adjusting their tone, their words, even their thoughts, to harmonize with your frequency. In your presence, you reshape their world without uttering a single command. That's power elevated to an art form. But do not confuse influence with simple charisma. Charisma is cheap. Charisma makes people admire you. Influence makes them move for you. It is control disguised as connection. It's about understanding the hidden desires and fears that secretly drive all human behavior. Every single person wants something they don't have: validation, security, a sense of purpose. Find what they seek, and you hold the strings to their soul. The greatest leaders, seducers, and strategists in history mastered this. They had the uncanny ability to make others feel seen, understood, and needed, while secretly guiding them toward their own grand agenda. It's emotional architecture built on invisible foundations. To build this influence, you must first establish emotional authority. People instinctively follow those who remain grounded while the world shakes. Your calmness, which we forged in the very first step, becomes a lighthouse in their personal chaos. When you don't flinch in the face of crisis, others begin to trust your stability, even if they can't comprehend it. And once they trust your composure, they subconsciously surrender to your leadership. Emotional control breeds credibility, and credibility is the currency of influence. Remember, it is not your words that move people. It is the energy, the certainty that underpins them. Speak little, but ensure every sentence lands with the weight of a stone tablet. Never seek approval. Radiate conviction. The world follows conviction, not desperation. Machiavelli taught that rulers should appear virtuous even when they must act strategically. Why? Because perception governs loyalty. People don't follow abstract morality. They follow the feeling of stability. They crave leaders who seem unshakable, decisive, and consistent. You must project these qualities relentlessly. Be the eye of the storm, calm, collected, untouchable. When others lose their emotional control, they will instinctively flock to your discipline. Your calmness becomes addictive, your authority magnetic. But remember, influence is not manipulation for its own sake. It is the strategic control of outcomes. You are not lying to the world. You are leading it. You are shaping emotion, direction, and attention to serve a higher order, your mission. The strong man doesn't exploit. He engineers. He constructs systems of behavior that make compliance effortless. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said that a wise prince builds fortresses not from stone, but from the loyalty of his people. To sustain this architecture of influence, you must live by 3 unbreakable rules. First, control your image. Everything about you, your tone, your posture, your timing, communicates authority or weakness. You must be deliberate in every detail. People don't just listen to your words. They read your silence, your pace, your eyes. The way you enter a room must declare your dominance before you've said a word. Second, control your distance. Be close enough to inspire trust, but distant enough to maintain mystery. Too much access breeds familiarity, and as we know, familiarity erodes power. Influence thrives in the tension between admiration and uncertainty. Let people see just enough of you to respect you, but never enough to fully understand you. Third, control the narrative. Never, ever allow others to define your story. Speak rarely, but when you do, make your words final. Redirect attention. Reframe failure as a lesson in strategy. Redefine success on your own terms. The narrative you create becomes the truth they believe. And when you control belief, you control behavior. Understand this. Raw power fades, but psychological influence compounds over time. The sword may win a battle, but the mind wins an empire. True Machiavellian power doesn't need violence, it uses alignment. The world naturally bends around men who know exactly who they are and what they stand for. When your inner state cannot be shaken by external forces, others will begin to orbit it, like planets around a star. Influence is the shadow cast by mastery. It is not performed, it is earned. The world doesn't need to be forced into submission when it can be led. Part 6. The Fortress Mind. Everything we have discussed, composure, perception, influence, is built upon a single, non-negotiable foundation: the fortress mind. The strongest citadel in existence is not built of stone or steel. It is forged in silence, forged in discipline, and resides within the confines of your own skull. The fortress mind is your impenetrable sanctuary, the unbreakable center of command, where no insult, no betrayal, no external chaos can breach your internal stability. This is the realm of emotional immunity, the state where you no longer react to life, but instead dictate how life is allowed to affect you. Machiavelli knew that a prince who cannot control his own emotions is a slave to anyone who can provoke them. The moment someone can anger you, they own you. The moment they can make you jealous, they control you. The man who masters detachment, however, becomes psychologically untouchable. He doesn't suppress emotion, he commands it. He observes its arrival, analyzes its purpose, and then chooses what to feel and when to feel it. That is true sovereignty. To construct your fortress mind, you must begin with ruthless awareness. Every unconscious emotional response is a vulnerability, a crack in your defenses. Every flicker of frustration, every pang of envy, every wave of doubt is an open invitation for others to invade your mental territory. Most people guard their physical possessions with locks and alarms, but leave the gates to their mind wide open. They allow the noise of the world, the opinions on social media, the negativity of the news, the moods of those around them, to dictate their inner state. You must become the absolute opposite. You must treat your inner world like a sacred kingdom worth dying to protect. Filter every word you hear, every piece of information you consume, every emotional reaction that arises, through one cold, simple question: does this strengthen me or does it weaken me? If it weakens you, it is an enemy, and it does not get past the gate. Emotional immunity is not the absence of feeling. It is the absolute control of interpretation. You don't stop feeling the pain of a setback. You stop allowing that pain to define your next move. You don't avoid the possibility of betrayal. You anticipate it, analyze it, and convert its energy into strategic clarity. Every slight, every loss, every rejection ceases to be a wound. It becomes data. It becomes fuel. The world throws chaos at you, and your mind, like a perfect machine, transmutes it into order. The average man is consumed by his emotions. The fortress mind absorbs them, breaks them down into their component parts, and uses the raw material to build higher walls. That is psychological alchemy at its highest level. A fortress is built on routine. Therefore, discipline is your gatekeeper. The body must obey the mind, and the mind must obey structure. When you wake at dawn, when you train your body relentlessly, when you maintain unwavering order in your environment, you are reinforcing the architecture of your inner citadel. Chaos cannot penetrate a man who lives with precision. Routine is not confinement. It is power disguised as repetition. Every day that you execute your rituals, you add another stone to your mental walls. People will call it obsession, They don't understand its defense. Machiavelli wrote that fortresses are only as strong as the ruler's resolve. The same applies to your mind. You must sever your dependence on external validation. The moment your peace of mind relies on someone else's approval, you have handed them the keys to your kingdom. Build your self-worth on internal, controllable metrics, your discipline, your performance, your results. Praise is a tool you can use, not sustenance you need. Criticism is feedback you can analyze, not a truth you must accept. The fortress mind doesn't crumble under the weight of praise, nor does it flinch at the sting of an insult. It simply observes, always detached, always calculating. To achieve this state, train your detachment daily. Start by observing your emotions as if they were weather patterns passing through. Instead of identifying with them, separate from them. When anger rises, do not say, "I am angry." Instead, state with cold objectivity, "Anger is present." That small linguistic shift changes everything. You move from being the victim of the storm to being the observer watching it from behind impenetrable walls. You regain your power, and yet the fortress mind is not emotionless. It is ruthlessly selective. You choose when to deploy warmth, when to show strategic compassion, when to appear cold as ice. Everything becomes deliberate. You no longer bleed your energy for everyone who touches you. You reserve emotion as a weapon, sharp, precise, and lethally effective. To the weak, emotion is a vulnerability. To the strong, it is an instrument of leverage. The fortress mind does not fear emotion. It masters it. It uses it. Remember, the strongest walls are invisible. When you stop reacting, you become unpredictable. People can't find your buttons to push, so they start to respect your composure. They sense that no manipulation, no flattery, no insult can find purchase. That in itself is a form of psychological intimidation. A calmness so pure, it unnerves the emotional. The storm can rage outside, but inside your fortress, the silence is absolute.